Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Kreesis, and welcome to the next installment of Nielsen IQ's Founder Series. This new video series will dive into the many facets of launching a CPG brand, from perfecting the formulation to securing a meeting with retailers, from getting on retailer shelf to scaling the business. Each episode will shine a light on the challenges and successes of startup CPG brands. Now, joining me today to share his story, a CPG founder, Bill, creator of Athletic Brewing. Welcome, Bill.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Very excited to have you join us here. I was joking beforehand that I'm a super fan of the brand. I've got some in my basement, so hopefully get that live. But let's have some fun. Let's dive right in. So can you just give us a little bit of background, introduction? Who are you? How did you create Athletic Brewing?
For sure. Yeah, I'm very much an accidental entrepreneur. I'm hugely passionate about food and beer, but had a very different career previously. I was in the finance world and assumed that would be my career for life. I liked it. It was challenging. It was rewarding. However, as I was turning 30 and my life was becoming increasingly performance focused, mindful, healthy, me and my wife's an incredible vegan chef. So we like extremely healthy in the house, organic, vegan type diets. And both in my career and in my athletic pursuits, I was trying to become more high performance. And I realized alcohol was really a ceiling on that in my life in so many ways. And when I stopped drinking for a month, training for my first ultra marathon, I realized that I had uncovered the biggest life hack I'd ever uncovered. And then, but I still love to do all the things I used to love to do. And that was 3 or 4 work dinners a week, events with friends, family, whatever. And like in a modern busy life, there's 5 or 6 drinking occasions a week where I didn't want to be drinking. I wanted just a great beverage that went well with my food, that I'd be proud to hold in my hand. And it didn't exist. And non-alcoholic beer was this sleepy, dusty category that resonated so well with the modern life, but it hadn't been innovated in over a quarter of a century. And so it was like this huge opportunity hiding in plain sight that not only was economic, but I had seen this enormous positive impact in my own life. And that was something that I was talking to my wife, I was like, how can I take this to like tens of millions of people, like this life hack I've uncovered? And we wanted to make something that when people held a beer in their hand that was not alcoholic, that it was a positive, easy choice for them to make and they were proud of it, and that they weren't compromising on their experience at all. So yeah, there's a lot there, but it was really like from that realization, stopping drinking, it was like 2 years of business planning and then off to the races.
I love it. So it's a personal connection that led the way, which I can totally relate to. Now, once you had that idea, can you take us through like what steps did you take from concept to actually getting a product created?
Yeah. So like my number one advice to founders and entrepreneurs is like, it has to be an idea that you literally can't turn off. Like everywhere you're walking, whatever you're doing, like in all your downtime, it's what you're thinking about, because it's definitely not easy in starting any size business. And this was truly it. Like I had no intention of going into the CPG world, and I just couldn't turn this idea off.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that has pulled me the whole way. I literally can't turn it off. And me and our co-founder, John, are always just like thinking about it and so excited about the future and where we're going. But yeah, the steps were like put together a really good business plan before I left my other career. And like we wanted to build on a really good foundation. That's everything from a very differentiated product than what other people could put on the shelf. We want differentiated marketing and differentiated people. So like the beer, we came up with a totally unique and proprietary way to make our beer versus anything that had been made in the category. In terms of marketing, we wanted a aspirational and positive non-alcoholic beer category that people were super excited. And it was really easy for people to like say accidentally swap out of alcohol into non-alcohol for the first time ever, where previously that was like such a major societal barrier and stigma that we wanted to help people cross over that. And then people was like one of the most important foundations of our company. Is like really building the team and the culture and the vision for what you want the company to be in the future, and be really clear about that. And I think because we've been able to recruit such amazing people around us. But yeah, things like I had never, ever before I started Athletic put any thought into an employee handbook or what that could mean for our company. I'm so glad John and I like put a lot of thought into what our employee handbook means at Athletic.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to double click for a second into the culture piece because I do think it's some things I've talked to different founders you have to be purposeful about. When in that journey of starting the brand, starting the company, did you get really serious about okay, I want to form a culture and set of people that is going to take this brand forward? Where did you do that in the kind of the timing of starting the brand?
It was super early. John and I had the
Yeah.
luxury of home brewing in an empty warehouse, like two people who didn't know
Okay.
each other
Cool.
at all, doing hundreds of batches on Gatorade jugs. And it gave us a chance of like a lot of just quiet time to talk about what we wanted athletic brewing to be, both early on and in the future. And that allowed us to get those concepts into a handbook. Because if you don't have that for your company and if you don't know where it's going to go, everyone who joins your team is going to just put their vision of what the company
Yeah.
is on it, and it won't be coherent, and it'll be kind of torn apart at the seams as you scale.
Yeah, totally. I like that. So start early is the lesson here.
For sure.
Now let's pivot a little bit to the retail side. How did you first convince retailers to take on athletic brewing?
It was tough. I
Yeah.
mean, there was, so actually I will say there was, at the retail level and the consumer level, there has always been excitement, and not uniform, of course, but it's at the industry level. Like in the beer world, there was no enthusiasm for non-alcoholic beer, and I don't blame anyone because it had never been a great selling product. It had never been
Right.
exciting. No one ever talked about it. So why would the beer world be excited about it and innovating on it? But when we went to, like, we made sure to have a great product before we went to retail and have our brand proposition, everything we wanted to tell about our brand ready to go. Um, but credit to Whole Foods, they were the first major retailer to really recognize the potential. And the New Jersey regional buyer, Chris Monka and Justin Ray, they said, they like, when I walked in with unlabeled bottles just with our liquid in it, they were basically like, we've been waiting for this. And I was like,
Wow,
and
that's
it
amazing.
was, so we got a trial with them. They've very
Okay.
quickly grown to being our leading national retailer. But a lot of the local retailer relationships are built hand by
Yeah.
hand, getting buyers and people who are really excited to tell your story for you and like feature the beer and are loyal to the brand. So I'm a huge believer of a thousand true fans, where like if
Yeah.
you convert 1,000 people yourself to being super fans, that'll just replicate out from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that network effect of getting them to be, enraptured by this concept, this brand, and what you stand for, then helps it, go out well beyond what you could initially imagine.
For sure.
Um,
And I could have never ever imagined myself being a salesperson. It's literally just because I'm so confident in the beer John has made in being like
yeah,
totally differentiated, and just my enthusiasm for the impact we're having on the world. Like it just it gets me so revved up that I actually can sell this. But yeah, so I think there's a lot that has to fall into place before you're even ready to sell for sure.
yep, totally fair. Now, in that journey of getting onto or getting a trial into Whole Foods, and then thereafter, often find from brands there's a lot of stumblings, right? A lot of roadblocks, supply chain issues. What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced? How did you get through them?
Yeah, I mean we've learned every lesson at hopefully very small scales for the most part, and but we have an amazing community who's been very patient with us.
Mhm.
Ironically, in 2018, there wasn't anyone who wanted to talk about non-alcoholic beer, and then in 2019, there was like this unbelievable non-alcoholic beer shortage in New England. Like everyone was having a panic that
Yeah,
not enough non-alcoholic beer was around. It was
it was
like,
this house, Bill. It was right here.
yeah, it was like the most ironic moment. Like a year and a half previously, I couldn't get anyone to answer
Yeah,
phone calls, and now there's like such a shortage. But I think it's almost impossible to scale and sell at the same time. So like there's just going to be those pain points where you're out of stock, overstock, out of stock, overstock as your brand builds. But yeah, I think we've done everything with a quality mind. So I would say most of our scariest moments or like biggest lessons are around quality and just like destroying product. And like I feel
yeah,
very confident saying that we've always just made the hard call. And we had our first national order about to go out. This is way back in like mid 2018, and John and I didn't love the product that was about to go on the shelf, and we destroyed. We had basically $0 in the bank account. Our first
Wow.
truckload ready to go out the door of like our first big order, and we killed the whole truckload and rebrewed it. So it's like
That is phenomenal.
we had always prided ourselves on making the really hard quality choice to make sure it's our best beer in the world and build the brand that way. So, um, but since we've like made very expensive quality decisions in terms of big tunnel pasteurizers and things like that, just to be sure we're bulletproof on quality. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's like along the way, it's like always the hardest choice is almost always the right choice for us. So
Yeah, I think that's just an amazing testament, right? And lesson learned that, I can imagine being in your shoes for a minute here, having to make that decision, right? You're $0 in the bank, right? But I think it's great for everyone to hear that at the end of the day, your consumers trying out that product are going to be the ones that spread it to, 1,000, and you have that network effect. And if you don't have the quality they can stand by, it's going to catch up with you, probably, I assume,
for
in
sure.
your perception.
Yep, for sure. We could have sold that beer and probably turned off 1,000 new potential customers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it was good for our investors to see that commitment to quality also, and probably reassuring for them in some ways too.
Yeah, that's a great take. So it leads itself nicely to a conversation around customer loyalty. Can you talk about loyalty to the brand, and also from a data standpoint, how do you measure loyalty? How do you think about loyalty?
Yeah. So we're with our e-commerce, we're extremely receptive to customer feedback, and we listen to everything, respond to every email and phone call directly. And for over a year, that was just my cell
Love it.
phone and email inbox too. And so we're always, I think our feedback loops are faster than
Yeah.
most in the industry who outsource a lot of things. So like just being really close to your customer, listening to what they say, and so definitely, but trying to build really loyal customer relationships for the long haul. And then, sorry, my dog just burped in the background. That wasn't me for people on
You're
audio only.
good.
Uh, um, but in terms of data, I mean, I'm pulling up data every day, and I'm not just saying that because this is a Nielsen call. It's when you build good data sets, you've got to use that data, and
Yeah.
it's the best way to. We had a lot of disbelievers out there on the landscape,
Okay.
and we used our good data sets and the Nielsen data that showed that to spread that to retailers. And it was an argument of like, in a profit per square foot basis, like how could you not have this on the shelf
Yeah.
in that spot? So but once we built those good data sets, we took that to other retailers and basically said, you could have this in the
Hmm.
spot, like if you made these changes, and then you see it replicate over and over again. And then a lot of the things we hypothesized in like our 2017 white paper on the industry, it's fun to see that now show up in Nielsen data where,
Yeah.
we're like, oh, in Europe, non-alcoholic beer is 5 to 10% of the non-alcoholic beer market. But yeah, in other countries, and the worldwide average is 5% of the beer market is
Okay.
non-alcoholic beer.
Yep. Hmm.
Now we have data showing in leading retailers who've been forward thinking on the non-alcoholic beer set that non-alcoholic beer is over 8% of their overall beer set. And so, yes, it's still a call it $500 million category in the US. But if everyone made these changes into this high growth category, you're potentially
Yeah.
pointing at a $5 to $10 billion category if you extrapolate that out to the whole beer set. So there's some really exciting things going on in the data under the surface that we're starting to tell in our storytelling with retailers, with industry players, with overseas retailers. Like we're about to launch Tesco in the UK, like using our US
Awesome.
data, telling that
Yep.
story in other countries. Like, for example, we can do a profit per square foot analysis on what a 6-pack of dusty bottles does versus versus like 4 of our 6-packs in a block. And so we're storytelling with data every day for sure.
I love it. It's such a great example of sometimes even if you don't have the data yet on your business, but telling the story of where there's data elsewhere. So like pulling an example of Europe, like knowing some of the trends there, extrapolating it, come to the US, or even then eventually having the data on, Whole Foods and building that into, okay, this is the roadmap. It's such a strength that can be there to support brands, but brands don't always know that they can have access to data. It's something I've seen also with with brands and being able to kind of shift categories or begin to kind of change a category. It's how do you drive correlations or insights on the consumer that's going to give confidence like to your story. So that just speaks volumes there.
Yeah, there's the your team just did the overall non-alcoholic sector review, which was pretty interesting a few weeks ago. But the data point in there that I found so interesting was a percent of overall beer growth coming from non-alcoholic beer and like the category growth contributors, but also the average buyer in the grocery store who buys non-alcoholic beer, the basket jumps by a huge amount. So stuff like that is just super interesting to try to pull out and tell you your story.
Totally. Yep. And that builds into that. I think the heart of it, right, is having that shopper information, that shopper insight, right? And going beyond just, okay, what were your point of sales? What trying to put who's buying and how does that affect, basket size and loyalty levels? Because then that helps build your story quickly, despite, maybe distribution challenges or things like that early in your journey.
For sure.
Well, that's great. So I want to land with one final question. Bill, what would be your final piece of advice for someone who's maybe, you 5 years ago, right? Kind of starting out that brand or 7 years ago. What would your advice be to how to kick off that brand, how to get it to market, and how to get it to consumers?
Yeah, I think be as thoughtful about things as you can early on, and make sure it's something that like you literally can't turn out can't turn off, that you're so excited about, because you need it to be an ongoing fire that's burning brightly for 5-10 years, and you're ultimately going to be responsible for a lot of jobs and stuff with your idea. And but that being said, stay with it. It's the most exciting thing, and it's so much fun. It's a interdisciplinary education opportunity unlike any other. And so there's definitely scary moments, but if you believe in it, like tell people about it, and tell everyone about it. And I think just making sure you have a really good passion for the idea and a really good reason for being
totally.
Like, is this a me too that like, are you looking, is it like a 1-year opportunity or is it a 20-year opportunity? And I think I'd really encourage people to run after those 20-year opportunities.
Love it. Well, that's wonderful. I do have one last one. What's your favorite flavor?
Even though I'm drinking Upside Down right now, Run Wild is my favorite. So it's probably like 70% of beer I drink, even though I've got pretty much every variety we make in my fridge.
Yep, I love it. Well, I've got to represent here. I've got the Athletic Light right here. So this was my summer go-to. So did have to represent there. But thank you, Bill. What an awesome story. I think totally our fans will love this one and get a lot of insight from it. So this has been another episode of our Nielsen IQ Founders Series, where we dive deep with some of the most innovative brands and founders to unpack how brands launch and grow in the CPG space. This video is brought to you by Nielsen IQ, where we are revolutionizing the CPG industry and democratizing data and analytics for emerging brands. To learn more, check out nielseniq.com/Pfizer. Thank you, Bill.